Hi everybody, welcome to Ctrl Alt Compete. Today we're joined by Drew Spark from G2 Esports. How you doing, Drew?
I'm doing good. Good to be here. How you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Do you do any podcasts?
I used to. I used to do a lot back in the Sentinels days, but these days, no, not really.
And so what did you, so talk about that then, so I suppose, we'll jump back, okay, let's talk about the Sentinels then. Like, what was that like being a coach to the Sentinels?
It was pretty surreal, I won't lie. I kind of got thrown into it last minute. There was like a big shake-up going into the partnership era. And yeah, I mean, the 2023 year in particular was pretty wild, and then obviously turning that around going into 2024 and having a more successful year, it was good. So I got to experience the lows and the highs. And you know, I mean, they're a great organization over there as well. They've got some great people. So, you know, even doing stuff like this, like podcast stuff or content, it really kind of brought me out my shell a little bit more and allowed me to kind of build a profile, which is kind of cool.
Do you know what? I think my wife and I both love Valorant, as you know, because you know she came and said hello on one of the calls we had, right? So she's a total fangirl. But she, when we first were watching the Sentinels and watching the Masters, and we seen you with the kilt, and I was like, that guy had a kilt on. Well, I was like, yeah. I was like, it'll be Scottish. Is it? I go, trust me, it'll be Scottish. But then we kind of look back into you. So, yeah, how did you find that then? Like, getting with Valorant? How did you get to there, Drew?
Like, how did I get to Valorant?
Yeah, how did you get to that?
I mean, I mean, the tagline I always use is just, had a passion for gaming. I've always had a passion for coaching. I've been coaching since I was about 13.
What did you coach then?
I was just sports. I was just getting involved with, you know, like local summer camps and stuff. And I was a little bit older than everyone else, so I was kind of leading some of the sessions. And then from there, I actually got some of my actual, like, what they call, like, coaching levels at different sports. I was also an athlete at the time. Okay. So I kind of mixed really well.
What did you do? What was your...
Track and field was my main thing, but I also did rugby, you know, so it's cool being here at the, you know, at Murrayfield. Yeah, so I did a bit of both. And then I went to college to do music out of nowhere.
As you do?
Yeah, it's a bit of a long story, I won't get into that, but the point is I ended up gearing that towards music tuition as well. So there's clearly something about tuition teaching that. What
do you think you like? I mean, we've done a lot of esports and we've done a lot of schools, and I would say that we've done a lot of stuff we've done with the kids and seeing the enjoyment they get out of it and helping them and giving them wee kind of tips. It's good if you can help them and you can inspire, right? So maybe do you think that's what you like? Is
I'm just addicted to like setting goals and like beating goals and like seeing the progression. I think it's really cool, and I think that when you are a coach, you get like the full view of that, right? That you either have a team or an individual that you're taking through, you know, like a program. And yeah, it's just really cool just seeing the progress and having that kind of impact. And I guess for me, you know, I've never really been interested in playing esports. I was never any good, honestly. But
I bet you were.
No, I was not.
Most people say they're not good, they're pretty good. No,
I got into esports really late. And honestly, it was more I got injured, so I couldn't do sports, and it kind of filled that competitive void. But I realized very quickly that I would love to like compete, you know, but I'm nowhere near good enough. I don't have the muscle memory or the reaction time. However, I knew, you know, I could probably coach in this, right? And at the time, it wasn't really a big thing, you know, to do that. But I worked my way up. And in terms of like, how do you get there? Like for me, it was, you know, obviously a lot of hard work, a lot of passion, but also a lot of luck, you know. Like
you need a little bit of that, but you need to be, you've got to say, a lot of people will speak to and they do say a bit of luck, but I know there's a whole saying, you've got to be in it to win it, you've got to be there, but you've got to put yourself out there to get the luck. I believe in that.
I believe in, you don't know when opportunities are going to come along, but if you're ready to grab them as they pass,
100%.
like then you're going to increase your chances. And I think that's the main thing holding people back. They're just not ready, you know, they're not prepared. So that's the thing I always preach, you know, just be as prepared as possible. And when those opportunities come, you know, it's like a little sushi conveyor belt. You just take it and see if it works.
And the thing is as well, I suppose, when you're dealing with players will move on and they'll maybe talk to people and they'll say, we need a coach, and they'll be like, I worked with that guy. And that's a lot of the word of mouth as well, right?
Yeah, like having a good reputation, making good impressions, obviously that helps too. As in
and winning.
Winning does help, yes. You know, having like a shiny, you know, winning record does help. But like when I switched from Rainbow Six to Valorant, I had an awful record. In fact, it was to the point where, even though it was a bit of a no-brainer to go from one game to the other, At the same time, there was a little bit of me that was like, I kind of want to stay here to like prove I can win.
Yeah.
So I do think that all these soft skills about being, a good communicator, a friendly face, good with talking with, the organization side of things, all that stuff definitely helps.
You see, I'm a sports fan myself, and I think the world of sport, the players could be absolutely horrific, but it's the manager that gets it. Do you find that as unfairly as well? Because you see that, I'm not going to mention some football teams that are in Scotland, but at the moment there's one that's really getting a hard time, right? And I suppose it could be a case of, could be the coaching, it could be the players, but then it's ultimately the manager. But when they win, it's the players that win, right?
Right.
When they lose, it seems to be the manager's fault that they can blame to. Do you see that a lot?
Yeah, I think it's really hard to see.
I think it's more in traditional sports than it is esports.
I would say it's more a thing in sports than esports. I think in esports, coaching staff rosters are still developing, I think, and I think a lot of organizations don't fully understand the value of a good coaching staff, being able to build a system, and that takes time. Esports moves at a much faster pace than sports, right? So I feel like it's equally volatile for everyone. The people who find themselves in the best positions, even just as players, are those with a brand, right? And I feel like for coaches, it's a very easy scapegoat, as is with sports. But like you say, like when you win, like it's all on the players, and it's really hard to see a coach's impact. That's the problem. And honestly, that's part of the job.
You can't hear it either, right?
Right.
How much are you in their ears? How much? Like, see, for example, in Valorant, for example, when you're watching the Sentinels and they cut to you in the room, right? And you see you in the room. How much do you get to talk to them during the match, or is it just at like the end of a round, or?
Yeah. So in Valorant and in most like competitive shooters, like CS, for example, you have timeouts. Which I can activate at any time. And that gives me a minute of.
And they pause the whole game.
They pause the game for an entire minute, so just literally press the pause button on it, and no one can move.
During a play, that could be quite.
Oh no! It's like in between rounds.
Got you. Sorry.
Let's say like it's fifth round 18, and I want to take a pause. I'll hit the button, and then just before round 19 starts, the game gets paused for a minute. My microphone gets unmuted. I could talk. But the microphone is just unmuted for a whole minute. I say what I want to say. My mic gets muted again. And then I can speak to them before the game, at halftime as well. So there's quite a lot of input I can have, but I have to be very smart with when I talk. And let's say you're my opponent and you take a timeout, that's also time for me to talk as well. So all in all, I could have up to 5 minutes, 4 minutes of I guess, like tactical input.
And how much, so in a sense as well, right, how much decision making do you have in the roster? Because ultimately, when you think of a manager, right, they maybe get to bring in the players that they like. I'm talking about football specifically, right? And then that's their players, and they know how they want to build their team, so they select them. As in a sense, it's completely different in Valorant, so you having to work with what players you've got, and then make a play around them.
It kind of depends. Again, different organizations are different, and ultimately it's their money, right? So they could do what they want with their rosters. I think the most common thing is rosters will be put together and handed a coach. And
that's tricky.
It is tricky. Speaking honestly, I think there are plenty of coaches, but there are very few coaches that can actually walk in and have the full respect of the room, understand what they're doing when it comes to building a system, building a team. But those coaches generally do get the reins. There's obviously like a little bit of push and pull, but if you have a coach that comes in and has a good vision, obviously has a good pedigree, then they perhaps have more room to be as much of a GM, I guess, as they are a coach. But I would say for the most part, the way it works is organizations have their staff, they have their managers, they probably also have their vision with what they want to build, and it's more about finding a coach that aligns with their vision as opposed to the other way around.
And so then how do you feel then, how many players think that so here's one for you, right? I always think, for example, say I'm really good at Valorant. I spend my whole life playing with my friends, my community, and I'm probably the best at all the people I play with, right? I'm the top dog of all my friends. Then I join a team, and I'm around these other guys who think they're top dogs. How do you find ego within teams? Like, and then for example, I say, well, do you know what, maybe you used to be like what do you call them in Valorant when they go in front? My wife's going to kill me. You're not a smoker, you're not a defender, you're a...
Like an entry.
An entry point,
Yeah,
right? So
like
say you want to be doing you want to do the kills, right? What if I say to you, no, you're actually better maybe playing back a bit? How do people's egos feel for that?
Again, like I feel like as always, as a coach, you have to earn the respect of your players.
Yep.
I think at my stage in the career, it's a little bit easier now, just because I've experienced and I've obviously got some results behind me now. But before, when I was coming in, it was very hard to kind of like look at someone and be like, hey, like this is what you're used to doing, and it's more about like if you're a good coach, you're able to kind of like see the progression of a player and where they're best suited. The reality is, I say this all the time, and it sounds really, degrading, but it's the honest truth. Like, most esports players get there by just playing video games all day and being very good at wiggling a mouse on a mouse pad better than most people.
Yep.
They don't really have, the best awareness of like, how they should be playing, or like thinking about their role in like a holistic way, or even like.
Do they solo queue a lot? Do you think?
Yeah, even just like certain like communication skills, sometimes they lack. So what's important for a coach is being able to, adapt to different personalities and to be able to connect with people. And ultimately, if you're a coach and you're not able to connect with your players, like you're failing, right? So that's where like being a good fit for your team, but also as a coach being adaptable is important. Because you never know what personalities you're going to get. And at the end of the day, your job is to get results and to get the best out of those players. And there's like an inherent amount of trust that is required in order to do that.
And what do you do then regarding even tactics then? So how much do you look into other teams' plays for maps? And how do you even find that information out? Because you'll only ever get to see it when they're actually playing live, right?
Yeah.
So you would only get to see what they're doing behind closed doors.
Exactly,
I mean, do you hear rumours about how teams are training? Like, I mean, is it that kind of circuit? Like what map they're good at, maybe?
Obviously, like there are leaks that exist. Sometimes it's very frowned upon to like leak and like go off.
Could be a true leak, could be a false leak, right?
Could be a false leak too. In fact, I've been in situations before where I know a team is going to leak, so I fed them false information by playing a different competition. And it's actually
sport as well,
it actually works, Like you have to play the game, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, in terms of like actually doing it properly, though, I mean, it just kind of comes from, you enter a tournament, you watch other teams play, you kind of get like a feel for like the style that they play. And it's just like, for me, it's like a mixture of just using my experience with the game, my experience with teams as well. Use football a lot, right? Like you can, how like the brand of football that say like a Chelsea will play compared to a Norwich, right?
That's down to the manager as well, you would say. They implement that style. That's what I wonder.
Yeah, and sometimes you see that too, like where, like maybe like a coach joins the team and you see like that team maybe develop in a certain way. But to me, I feel like esports has more room for individual, what's the word? Like individual skill expression, I would say. And I feel like that is what builds your team identity. But yeah, like as a coach for me, like it's more kind of figuring out, okay, what's the identity of this team? How do they like to play? Maybe some focuses on certain individuals, like the entries, for example, the people opening up the rounds, like how do they do that? And then for me, it's more just about, okay, how can I craft my game plan to suit what I'm going to be against? Because ultimately, you don't want to completely change your style to counter another team. You want to make your style work in that way. So
and how detailed is it? So you've got 5v5 in Valorant, just in case anybody doesn't know, right? Tactical shooter, 5v5, right? Plant the bomb or kill everybody to win the round, right?
Yep.
Off you go. Don't peek, boy peeks down, so you're down to 4. How much does one kill sometimes just, oh God, it's like how much does it throw out the window? Like, have you got plans for if you go down to 4? Have you got plans for if he goes first? Like, how detailed can it get?
Yeah, like I mean...
Does that make sense?
Yeah, like, we'll have our playbook, right? And the point of having the playbook is that when we practice, and, we'll practice, like...
Against who, though? So which 5, so if you've got your team playing as 5, do you just go into, like, ranked comp?
No, we go into custom games.
Custom games.
And we can play against, there's plenty of teams looking for practice, right? So it's organized on like an hourly basis. You'll start a practice session. It never lasts more than an hour, right? So it's really good for time blocking. And yeah, like, so like, let's say like, this German Challenger League team is looking for practice. We'll book them in advance. We'll agree on the map. And then obviously there'll be things that they're practicing, things that we're practicing. But in terms of like what you're saying about like these different protocols that you have, it all just comes down to building a playbook, running the plays multiple times, and just kind of seeing what happens. You know, as sometimes it's going to be successful, sometimes it's not, and it's important to be like, oh, well, okay, like if this part goes wrong, what's our pivot? And that's how you build like really good mid-rounding, we call it. But also just like awareness of like when to do those plays. Like maybe like there's like certain moments in the game where you can do a fast play because you've conditioned something prior in the rounds. Maybe you need to slow it down a little bit because of how they're playing. Or maybe it's like a play style thing, like I was saying before. Maybe it's a really aggressive team, so maybe like those kind of plays just won't work at all, right? Or they're very high risk. So there's like a lot of min-maxing going on, and ultimately it just takes a lot of practice. Like we'll practice 10 times more. We'll spend 10 times more time in the practice room than we will actually play matches.
And again, and so here's one for you, right? So when a new agent drops, how do you go through that?
It's funny because you were saying about like the new FIFA game coming out and how like you know, these pros are getting their hands on it today and they're trying to break the game. It's kind of like that with a new agent. You're immediately in the lab. You're trying to figure out, okay, what does this agent bring to the game individually? What does this agent bring to the game in terms of a composition? What kind of overlap is there between this agent and existing agents in the game or existing strategies? And then first of all, figuring out, is it worth it? Like, is this dude any good?
Would you say sometimes that the developers potentially make them a bit OP because they maybe want people to maybe buy them to begin with rather than grind for them? And then when eventually they're like, oh, they're broken and they scale them back, and you could be training with that agent being OP, and then suddenly before a game, like how, okay, do the developers say to you, okay, we won't change this agent for a while till you get this out of the way? I mean, how much do they think about the scene?
Well, first of all, I mean, with Valorant, we don't have like the issue of like an overpowered character being able to be bought in the game. It's all free, right?
Yep.
But I do believe that it's easier to scale back a character or something that's strong in the game as opposed to forcing them in. And I almost feel like it's more forced and uncomfortable to do that. So yeah, like I do think, at least in my game, typically agents are released on the strong side, and if they're not, they're given updates very quickly. In terms of the communication between us and the developer, you know, honestly speaking, it's not always the clearest, you know, like. And I think that
you hear that through a lot of esports titles. I mean, I've asked a lot of FIFA pros, how much do you actually speak with EA? Some say nothing, but it's quite. You think to yourself, surely they should have like, you know, even like focus groups of. But then they also say that they wouldn't be able to give an unfair advantage because then they would be maybe getting the look into the game.
That's exactly what I was going to say, right? Like the other thing as well is like esports is such a small percentage of the player base, and ultimately like it's, you know, it's leveraged as a marketing tool, right? So, you know, even though there are communication pathways and, you know, these focus groups that do exist, in terms of like a direct line of communication and having like clear timelines on when things are going to be changed and stuff, it's just not feasible. It's not feasible competitively, and also it's just not really feasible on the developer side.
And so then what would you say then even regarding maps then? Because I suppose, I mean, some maps become quite big and some become favourites. I mean, do you think that maybe even the maps would be a good one? I mean, how do they take their data to create a map? Because surely it can't just be down to designers. There must be a lot of thought going into a perfect map, right?
Yeah.
That's really important, no?
Yeah, I mean, like, they've got their team in the background, and I mean, for us, like, our map pool's constantly changing as well, like, it's chopping and changing. So, as an esports pro, there's a lot to navigate. You're kind of playing reactionary a lot.
Yeah.
And as such, like, when you're thinking about, you know, your upcoming year as a coach or a manager, or even as an organization, you have to build in these things into your system to be able to anticipate change. Whether that's maybe developing a player onto different agents in case, maybe if they only play one agent, well, what happens if that one agent just suddenly gets effectively deleted from the game? You know, then what? So
would you look for if you had to sit and pick, if they said to you, hey Drew, new esports org, got billions of pounds, we're going to create this team, would you be looking for players that could maybe be flexible, or would you want somebody that was deadly with that one smoke? Like, so it must be pros to, you know.
Yeah, I think it would depend. Like, if there's someone who's really strong in an agent and I see a way to develop them within their role onto something different, even if it isn't necessarily within like the same like agent role, I would take that chance. For me, like building a team is it's just down to like so many different factors. You have to think about how they're going to communicate, how they're going to get on, like are they going to gel as a team? Are they actually going to be a team, or is it just a collection of players? So there's a lot of min-maxing in that way, where I could get the 5 best players in the world with all the money in the world, but
doesn't always work. You see that in sport as well, right?
Now, how many times have you seen a super team, like not work? It's on a knife's edge.
I mean, like I don't want to kind of throw like, but remember when Tens played for the Sentinels? Tens seemed to be like, at that point he seemed to be like the boy that had, I don't know if it's true or not, but sometimes he just had that bit of magic about him. I wouldn't say when I watched him he could do it all the time, but I think sometimes he seemed to be the guy that could pull that wee bit of magic out. Would you think that was quite fair?
I would say the current Sentinels are definitely missing his X factor.
Yeah, that's what I felt. Like he felt like, I mean, I think sometimes once again you could tell that maybe he would die, and these geniuses sometimes, if I can call them that, I think you see it in sport as well, they've got maybe some flaws, but I think he would, but you could see sometimes he could pull something out of his magic, yeah?
He would think at a million miles an hour.
Yeah.
I remember watching him do this clutch against G2 in scrims. It was a 1v4. I'm not going to get into the details of what happens, but the amount of small decisions he had to make in that moment, all reactionary, just coming at him, and him converting that into a play with a character like Omen, who has so much playmaking ability. I was just there like I couldn't believe it. Like the amount of brain process going on there, like you can't teach that. Like that's just special.
Just wired differently.
Yeah, that was like, I'm definitely not a pro. Like,
and so do you think they've certainly missed that? But do you think that sometimes can help or hinder a team? Because you see in football, you talk about your Messis and Ronaldos, and they bring them in, and teams are sometimes built around that. Would you say sometimes when you've got somebody that special, even in esports, they would build a team around that guy?
You need to give, if a player has...
Because remember, these guys as well we spoke about came from their communities, they were the top dog, so they have to then somehow bow to being...
I think there's a lot of different like situations, right? I think in like when you take someone like Tens, right, he's got a lot of X factor. The give and take with him is you've got to give those players the space to be an X factor, right?
Yeah.
Which means that you can't really like restrain them too much. Obviously, you can teach them good principles as a coach, but at the same time, you kind of need to like trust their intuition in the game. That's why like I worked with Zekin for 3 years.
Yeah, I love
like,
Zekin.
Yeah, like
and then he shaved his hair.
He shaved his head?
Did you know what shaved?
No, that's Zelsis.
Zelsis, sorry, damn it.
The other Z. No, Zekin was my teammate for like since I got into Valorant for 3 years, and like you want to talk about someone who just has like really good natural game instincts and game intuition.
Oh, so Zekin got the glasses and the black.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like
sorry, if anyone watches this.
He's got like that killer instinct, and he's so coachable as well. But at the same time, like
he looks quite humble.
He's very humble, but like he's also someone that you want to empower to have the freedom to make good choices in game. And when you talk about like coach impact, like that's where like again everything's on a knife's edge. You have to balance having your system and your way of playing and like the correct way to play, with allowing players to have their skill expression. And if you can nail that, that's where I feel like you have a good winning team. On top of obviously having a group of players that gel together and can work together and make it happen.
And so how different would your job be, for example, that you've went from that in your next team, and what have they kind of said to you, Drew, like, here's an amateur team, I'm a billionaire, right, I've got all the money in the world, but I want you to coach my team that are maybe at a lot lower level. What would be the biggest struggle, do you think? Is mindset? Or what do you think is the biggest thing you have to coach, apart from the skill side of it?
Yeah, there's definitely more mental aspects of coaching going on there. Because you're not working with, I used to work with extremely experienced players, and pretty much everything I was working with them on was like micro things within the game, maybe some communication stuff. But when you work with lesser experienced players, a lot of it becomes more about the mental stuff, like how do you prepare, not just in-game, but like out-of-game as well, like there's a lot you could teach someone there, especially a young player, how to communicate effectively, how to regulate emotions.
How do you do that?
Again, it just kind of comes back to having a good connection with them. Like you have to be able to, you have to be aware that...
Because when their head goes, you see it in sport, when they start getting like negged out, I don't know if that's what you'd call the term, but when they start to think negatively, when you see it in sport, a lot of good coaches, you said, it's all about that positiveness, and you can get a team that maybe can play out their skin just because they've got the right mindset, yeah? That you think's fair?
For me, I've always liked to try and use negative or at least explosive emotional moments as like a superpower. It's like
to get
like if you're like
in.
if you're like one of my players and you're like really annoyed at one of your teammates because this person made a play, they keep making this play, it's just so annoying, you know.
That's a big part.
I'll just turn around and say like, what are you going to do about this? How are you going to channel this? Sometimes maybe even turn it into like a leadership moment, you know, like especially if it's like a slightly more experienced player, right? But like even like the younger players, like you know, like I'm working with like a young 18-year-old player at the minute who plays the game so much, you know, and I'm trying to impart some leadership onto her to be like, hey, like if you feel like you can get more from your team in terms of like interacting with the game a bit more, or like, you know, getting on to play a bit more, like tell them, like, you know, you go be that leader in the room, you know. And so I think again, you got to try and put a positive spin on it, and that's where I think, you know, I'm by no means an expert on this, but I do pay attention to the different ways that, you know, individuals react to communication, and I try and fine-tune it in a way where I can always make a conversation at least constructive, even if we don't find a resolution.
And even if the way they say things, because you know what it's like, is if the way you say something sometimes could probably get somebody's back up, so you've got to make sure they're proper in the delivery of how they say it, right?
Yeah, and also just kind of like offering some extra perspective as well. It's like, okay, you may be annoyed at what happened in this moment, but like, let's rewind it a little bit. Let's see how we got there. And let's see if there's like a learning moment here. Because like getting tilted for the sake of being tilted is just not constructive. And
I try to say to my wife all the time, she gets so like tilted with it that she starts to play really bad.
Yeah.
Because and then everything's a problem, and then she's doing the wrong things, and then they can spiral with that.
You can see when you watch even pros play, right? Like you can tell when they're playing through emotion.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it can go the other way too. Like when you're having a really good game, sometimes you can overheat and go too far the other way. So again, it's just all about regulating that emotions. And you know, there are certain people in certain roles who are really good with this stuff, like performance coaches. They're very good at, you know, finding ways to give people mental routines, ways to reset better. But I mean, for me, it's just more, I've just seen so much that it's very easy for me to almost kind of like bring up like a previous experience and be like, okay, this is what worked for this player.
And that's a good way to
try this. You know?
I'll tell you what, before we wrap up, Drew, if there's any aspiring players that are certainly playing and maybe they're doing the solo queue, what would be maybe 3 things that you would say to them to focus on?
If they want to be a pro player?
Yeah.
Oof, that's tough. I mean, at least in Valorant, if you're top of the leaderboards, it's kind of hard for the pros not to see you because you all play on the same leaderboard, right? So if you end up reaching that level where you're constantly playing with and against pros, you have that whole word of mouth thing you were talking about where they just get familiar with you. I think always having as good an attitude as possible in those moments is good because, again, you're making an impression, right?
And they'll know if they could work with you or play with you,
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's this one kid in North America at the minute who's really, really good, but my first impression of him was from one of my former players was like, oh, this guy's a stream sniper, this guy's a tilter. So that's obviously affected his progression, right? So, yeah, you have to think about having a good winning attitude, being a good teammate. And beyond that, this is like a little bit more niche, but make some content, you know, like post some clips of you doing well. And then, you know, like people will see your name. Hopefully there's some consistency between your in-game name and whatever, you know, social media you use, like let's say it's Instagram or whatever. Start posting clips, like show how good you are and pick up those moments, put some music on top of it. It's not that hard. And all these small things help, you know, snowball it into something bigger.
Awesome.
And then at that point, it's just, are you in at the right time at the right place? But as long as you did everything that you could do to get there, then you've got the best
you'll be
chance.
watching and you'll find them.
Exactly. We're always watching.
Good man, always watching. Listen, thank you, buddy. Absolute pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Cheers, Drew.